Hi friends, this is Laura with Potpourri of Life. I hope you had a fabulous day. A little late in the evening, and what I am doing is I'm making a second batch of celery soup. Not cream of celery soup that is typical of what you can pick up at the grocery store. This is celery soup, and I don't make cream of celery soup for a couple of reasons. One, I'm dairy intolerant, although I could make it with goat milk, almond milk, any alternate milk. But also, you should not can at home dairy products. So, in saying that, I'm just going to make this celery soup. But there's a lot of uses that you can use the celery soup for, such as a base for a soup. You can make it a cream of celery by adding some milk, and you can make pot pies. You can make casseroles with pasta and stuff. And I used to do that when I was eating pasta and not realizing that I had a sensitivity to it. So now I've been looking for a long time. How can I make cream of celery, cream of mushroom? Well, basically I make the base, and that's what I'm doing today, is just making the base. You can add cream later if you want at another point, but not prior to canning. This here is so that I can make shelf-stable batch to go on my shelves, and when I want to quickly put a meal together, and as you've seen, I do stir fries. I like to do things quick when I'm actually making meals, because sometimes it's like my husband might get home late, or we'll be busy out in the yard. We might be doing stuff, and I get home, or we get into the kitchen. It's like, what do you want for dinner? And so we just want something quick and easy. That doesn't mean I don't make tedious meals or anything. It's just that when you're busy, you try to make things as easy as possible. So today, like I said, I'm going to make cream of celery. The first thing that I'm going to need to do is I'm going to use olive oil. Now I've got all my ingredients chopped up. I started the potato, so I still need to chop that up. But I can chop that up while I talk to you. And I also am going to be using some vegetable broth. I already, it kind of like settles. It's vegetable broth that I have made. This one was made actually about a year ago. And it's vegetable broth from a variety of vegetables that I had used from other meals that I was making. So I keep saving the vegetable ends and stuff, throw them in the freezer until it's time to make some broth. I'm actually ready to make more anyway. So I'm going to need 2 quarts of that. So I've got 4 pints sitting here. So the first thing I need to do, and I will tilt the camera a little bit, and I am going to add in some olive oil. And I haven't started the pan yet. This is like a stock pot, and I'm going to get this going. And you'll see on my left here, I've got my pressure canner started. I'm getting the water heated up, and it's on low right now, or it should be. It's on low. And what I'm trying to do is you get that water warm, because my jars are in the oven. They've already been washed and sterilized, and so now they're staying hot in the oven. And I do that on the lowest temp of 170 is the lowest I can go. And what I'm going to do now is I've got the oil warming up here. I am going to add in some chopped onions. This was a medium onion. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to brown the onions. And this is actually really easy to make. The only reason I didn't chop all this up in front of you was because it was tedious. That part is of chopping up all the celery, washing it, and then chopping it all up. Now, there are gizmos and stuff like that to do all that work for you, but I didn't do that. I just simply started chopping, and that's just what I did. Okay, next I am going to start putting in the veggie broth. This is is on low, but it just seems like it's coming in high. And I did get the onions a little bit brown, so I'm going to let that simmer a little bit before I add the other celery. Now, the other thing that I'm going to be doing, and I don't know if you can see it, is I'm going to, while that's heating up a little bit more, is I'm going to be cutting up some potatoes, because that's another item that goes into this celery soup. I've cut off all the bad pieces, so you want it, anything that you're using in this, even the celery, the onions, make sure all the bad pieces are off. So since I've already put my onions in, I'm going to use that same bowl. And just dice up your potatoes the same way you did your onions, just in small pieces. And this is one medium potato. The celery I used is a pound of celery. And a pound of celery is like 2 really big stalks of celery. Just pull it. I can't bend over and do that. Not tonight, at least. So I'm going to finish cutting these potatoes while I watch I can't talk tonight either. I didn't mean to put those in there. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is get the rest of the broth opened up. And it's okay that I put those few potatoes in there. It's not going to hurt it at all. So again, this is a medium onion. Sorry, I can't do 2 things at once. There we go. Okay. It's a medium onion. You kind of brown it in there in the heat with the olive oil. So olive oil, the onions, brown it up a little bit and start putting in your broth. And I had 4 pints, which is 2 quarts. And then chop up, I'm going to move these out of my way. There. Makes it a little bit cleaner. So as you might be hearing right now the broth warming up. I am now going to add in my 1 pound of celery. And you'll see that the celery is chopped up pretty fine. Just add that in. And I'll be cooking this for a little bit. And stirring as I go. So the bulk of what is in the stock pot is celery. And that's why it's basically called celery soup. So we're going to let that go before we add the potatoes. Now I found that I really liked this. Earlier this afternoon, well, it was closer to dinner time, I made a batch. And then I made another soup. There was a little bit left. So what I did was I made a soup for dinner. There was only 1 serving left, enough for 1 bowl of soup. And I'm going to make a similar soup maybe tomorrow or the next day. And I was actually surprised that I enjoyed a hot soup on a hot day, but it was really good. I took what was left. There was a little bit of celery and some of the broth still in there with the potatoes and stuff. So I took that out, and then I took some of the dehydrated mushrooms that I've done, and I put them in to kind of soak up the moisture, and I added in some carrots and a few other vegetables. It was really good. The flavors in this, no seasonings in this at all. no salt, no pepper, nothing. And you add this, you use this into your other soups, your other casseroles, your pot pies, whatever it is that you want to make and you would like to have celery soup. If you've never done this before, it's amazing. Truly, it is. Now this, while that's cooking, this is what the end product was. And what I did was I ended up putting them in half pint jars, which is the typical larger jelly jars. And I did that because most of the time I cook for David and I. Sort of like the broth was in pint-sized jars, I make them in quart size and I make them in pint size. But when I do stuff for him and I, for meals and stuff, I don't make big meals. And the reason is because I just don't like to have lots of leftovers. Do I enjoy leftovers? Absolutely. I do enjoy having leftovers for the next day. But I have found, now that the girls don't live at home and stuff, when I don't have other people here to eat the leftovers, we just get tired of it. And then we might put it in the cellar refrigerator and we forget about it. So a few months back, I decided we're not going to be wasting this food. Food costs money, whether we grow it in the garden or whether we go to the farm stand. We don't want it to be wasted. So in doing it, with that in mind, making this celery soup is just using up some extra celery I still had, and I was like, okay, what do I need to do with this? And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna make this celery soup because it's really good. Seriously, folks. Okay, let me stir this up a little bit. And you basically just cook it until the celery gets a little tender. You don't want to cook it for too long because the next step is to process it in the pressure canner. And we're going to be putting it in the pressure canner at 11 pounds for 40 minutes. And in the pressure canner, it's cooking it away. Now, if you wanted to use this and not make it shelf stable, say you had a big party and you needed a lot, seriously, a lot of celery soup, then certainly you would not have to pressure can it and you would just cook it longer until the celery softened up. And then at that point, if you're somebody who likes cream of celery, you just add the milks and stuff like that. You might want to consider having, alternate milks, most especially if you're making meals for a large group, like a church group or family gathering and stuff. I'm not saying you have to use alternate milk, but nowadays we just don't know who is allergic to what. And I never completed it. I started trying to get acclimated to raw milk, and I haven't done it completely. I actually like it. I actually like it better than goat milk. So I'm going to try to do that in a little bit, but right now I have a few other things on the table that I need to address first. So this is looking really yummy. So next I'm going to put in a medium potato that's been chopped up similar to the onion in small pieces. You don't have to do it the same size pieces that I did. Do whatever you want. Because if you think about it, when you go to eat this, it's all soft anyway, and it's all going to go really nicely together. I was getting very discouraged when I realized that I was I had gluten sensitivity, and then the milk allergies and such, and it came to surface strongly before I was diagnosed with Lyme disease, and it was just really bothering me. And then of course my daughter is gluten intolerant, but she has a huge allergy to milk. So we went through. Back then, when we discovered that, we didn't realize how little was out there that didn't have milk in it. And of course, now there's a great market for it, and they overprice. It's crazy. So it's best if you're somebody who has gluten and milk intolerances, it's really a great idea to make things from scratch because a lot of things have those in there and they might be labeled as another ingredient. Also, another benefit of making your own broths and your own soup bases and all that, you know what's in it. You can control your salt, you can control everything. But in this particular recipe, you don't need any of that. Now there is a secret ingredient that I'm going to be adding next. And you might actually be surprised that I'm putting it in. And I'll tell you in a minute as to why. Many of you know that I don't drink at all. But I am going to be putting in some white wine. And I did this with the other one. And the nice thing about cooking with wine is you don't get the taste of the alcohol. I respond to alcohol where I get really dizzy. And considering that Lyme disease has that kind of effect on me anyway, medications can do that to me as well. So even today after I put this in there, I just tried a sip afterwards. I did. My head got very dizzy right away. So I cook with it. So what I'm putting in there today is, I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if I can get the light right. Well, anyways, it's Beringer white. Okay, like I said, I don't drink a lot. Zinfandel. If I said it right, give me a thumbs up. Say so. If I said it wrong, send me to a link that says it right. Anyways, it's a kind of a, it says it's a white wine, but you can see that it has a rose color to it. And even though I sipped it, it does have a nice flavor to it. And I've had this for a long time, long before my Lyme diagnosis. And I just opened it today, so it's not going to go bad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put half a cup of the wine into the soup. And as I cook this, the wine, the alcohol, I can't talk. I told you I couldn't talk tonight. The alcohol content will dissipate as it's cooking. So you don't get an alcoholic type response. And I can attest to that because when I had the soup earlier, there was definitely no alcohol type side effect in it at all. Now, for those who have to stay away from alcohol for your reasons, I don't know if this would bother you. So because I don't know your condition, I can't say yay or nay. All I know is for me, it did not bother me. It did not cause, well, it's not going to cause me to crave alcohol anyway, but I just like it because it added the extra flavor that we would not have thought about. I don't have to put spices in here. I don't have to put salt and pepper or anything. This here, all the ingredients I just put in, that's it. I'm going to let it cook a little bit more. I really do hope that you consider making this because it's really quite delightful. All right, I am going to turn it off because I am now going to put it in canning jars. Yeah, it didn't take that long. Again, if you are going to use this in a large gathering, whether you're catering a big event or if you're having a church gathering where you need a lot of cream of celery soup or celery soup itself, that's going to be a big gathering. So I would recommend canning it if you can. If not, you may have to cut the recipe back a half or even into a quarter. So what I'm going to do, because the counter, it's a granite counter, so it is cold. So what I'm going to do is put a towel down. The jars are hot, the soup is hot, and so I don't want the hot jars to hit the cold granite, because that can cause it to the glass jars to weaken and break. I want to avoid that if I can. Let's see, I need one more thing here. Thought I had it. So I'm going to start taking the jars out. The last batch I made like 12 to 14 half pints, and I did 12 pints, and then I made 1 quart, and then I still had that left over for a soup. If I have leftover now, 11 o'clock at night, I'm not having a bowl of soup. I'm done with eating for the night. So, but I could save it for a soup for tomorrow. I was actually quite surprised that I enjoyed a hot soup on a hot day, but it was really good. So after I wash my jars, wash and rinse, I always put them in the oven at the lowest temperature. It keeps them hot, so I know that they're sterile and stuff. I do not have a dishwasher. Well, I have myself, but I can't, I want to do one more thing. You know, so I have to do the next best thing, where some people might use the dishwasher for sterilizing. I don't have that option. So I just use my oven. I just wash them really good, and then I use the oven. I stick them in there and turn on the heat, and it keeps them really hot. Okay, I thought I had I already put it in. So, and I just start putting it in here. And yes, even though this is a soup, you still want to use a stick. I'm using chopsticks. That's what I use to make sure that there is no bubbles down here. I'm going to actually use something else here instead of my... And what I like to do is, once I get 2 scoops in, and then I just try to get some of the broth to fill up the spaces a little bit. And I am filling right to the bottom of this rim. Now I have my lids all taken care of. If you've been watching me for a while, you know that I still put my lids in hot water. And I do that because it allows the rings to soften so that it seals better. Ball has changed everything, and there's other companies out there that sell them too, and it's just, if they've been sealed to the jar when I first get them, it already has that indent. So the reason I'm doing this is to take that indent out, and these are new jar covers. So I wanted to get... So what I'm doing now is I have some vinegar, and I am going to, I am going to clean the rims with vinegar just to make sure that I didn't get any of the soup around the lids, the edges. So, and as I get each jar in, just finger tight is all you want to do. I'm going to start putting them in there, in the pressure canner. And as you use the chopstick, you can tell that you might be able to put a little bit more in and stuff. And that's what you do. You just put it up to where the level is, and like I said, it's that first line. Oh, lid. So you don't have to watch me do this all the way through. I'm going to go over again all the ingredients and the process of doing this. So you need 1 pound of celery. That's about 2 large stalks of celery that you can purchase at the grocery store. Not a small one. You want one maybe about 3-4 inches in diameter, the bulk of them, of all the stalks. Cut off the ends, cut off all the bad pieces, and then chop it into small pieces. I'm not going to say bite size because it's all going to get softened and put into whatever meal you plan on using. So that's the first one. And then chop up 1 medium onion. And with the medium onion, you are going to saute it in the olive oil, about 2 tablespoons. Get it brown, and then add in your broth and your onions and your potatoes. Onions, potatoes, celery. And then the celery before the potatoes. And just cook it. And as you can see, when this comes out, everything is pretty much soft, but when it goes through the pressure canner, it's going to get soft as well. Make sure your jars are nice and hot. Make sure you have plenty of liquid in here when you do this. And that's what I'm doing, is when I do the chopstick, I'm making sure there's plenty of liquid, and if not, you can just okay. It's tired and I'm having a hard time talking and doing it at the same time. So as we said, I know I'm being repetitive here, so please forgive me. You're going to get your pressure canner going and just have it on a low temp so that the water is hot when you get the jars to go into the pressure canner. Make sure your jars are hot, but they've been washed and sterilized and then put into your oven to stay warm. Those of you who have a dishwasher, if that's your preferred method, you do what has worked for you. Then you have your 2 large bulk of stalks of celery. You want it to be 1 pound. So I ended up being 2 large stalks. So if you get small stalks at your grocery store or your farmer's market, you might need 4 to 6 of them. So keep that in mind when you do this. Can you weigh it? Absolutely. The thing to keep in mind, though, is you're going to take off the ends and you're going to take the leaves off because the celery leaves do not go in this at all. Save that to make celery salt. And then you'll need 1 medium onion, whatever onion you want. It doesn't matter. You could use a red onion. You could use a regular onion. You can use Vidalia onions. I wouldn't do the little green onions or the scallions and stuff because that'd be a lot of those. So I chose just a regular onion, and I cut it at first because I just cry about onion cutting. You want a medium potato, about the same size as your onion. Chop that up. I think I got that. So we've got, and a quart of broth. 2 quarts of broth. That's what I put in. And that's vegetable broth. if you go to the store and you're buying it, you want it to equal 2 quarts for this particular recipe. And then, so follow me here, we've got the broth, the celery, the onion, the potatoes, and the olive oil to get the onions brown. And don't forget a half glass of wine. Now, what if you do not want to use wine? I didn't know if I had white wine in the house because I have some alcohol in the house because I make my own tinctures. I wasn't sure if I had some white wine. So this worked out. You can use a rose wine. If you don't want to use a wine, you can use apple cider vinegar and water. You can use a quarter cup of apple cider vinegar and a quarter cup of, I would do filtered water, distilled water, or if you don't have either of those, boil your water from your city, unless you have rainwater that's filtered or you have your own well water and you're happy with how it tastes. I just filter our water. So you can substitute the wine with apple cider vinegar and water. That's all. And then you put it into the jars and you process at 11 pounds for 40 minutes. And that's for the half pints and the pints, so 40 minutes. And then you're done, and then you end up with a beautiful jar looking like this. It's kind of chunky looking because there's a lot of celery in there. And I realize that some people may say, that's kind of disgusting. That's not really all that tasty. Unless you try it, you will not know. That is a lot. When you go to make like a cream of celery soup, what you do is you take this jar, if you like eating celery soup. I don't particularly enjoy eating just celery soup. But what you could do is just take this, the same amount of water, and cook it together. And then if you want cream of celery, just add 2 tablespoons of your preferred milk choice. Now, if you're going to make a vegetable soup, you can use this straight and add some vegetables like carrots and potatoes, peas, beans, whatever it is that you want. Another thing that would be nice is the dried beans that are already in a can. You can can your own. I can do a video at some future point of how I do that with my beans so that I don't have to have them all sit overnight and stuff. That way I have beans in jars ready to go. Cannella beans would be really, really good with this, and black beans. Then add in some peas, some carrots. You might have a real hearty soup for come fall or winter. You can even add chunks of squash or pumpkin. Whatever you want, you can use celery soup as your base, and then you have a fabulous soup to enjoy. I hope this was encouraging. I hope you didn't kind of like, oh, that sounds gross. If you've not had it, I encourage you to try it. Like I said, cut the recipe back, maybe to a fourth, so you can make a big pot. Can you freeze this? Absolutely. If you have the storage units to freeze it, yeah, you can freeze it. I don't, because I'm trying to keep my freezer space for other things. We don't have a lot of freezer space, so I just want to be conservative in that space. Plus, this I just take off the shelf and I'm ready to go. Reminder, this is still hot from earlier today. Remember that once this is done and the lid is sealed, and it is sealed, I don't take these rings off for about a week. I leave the rings on for a week. And then I check them later. And if everything is still good, I take the rings off so that the moisture does not get underneath and rust them out. So that being said, I hope this was inspirational for you. I hope you do give it a try. And if you do, please come back and comment that you tried it. If you have questions, just write it down in the comment. And I can't forget, I always forget this part. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. If you liked this video, please do a thumbs up. And like I said, do comments and stuff. But I do ask that comments are nice, because you know what? as I've said before, there's not enough kindness in our world. And what better way to spread a little bit of joy by being kind? Whether it's to me or to anybody else who might leave feedback, just be kind. Well, I hope this was helpful, encouraging, and again, I don't know if I'll be doing late night videos. This is tough because my brain is not really there. But I wanted to get this done because I have other things to get accomplished tomorrow. So have a wonderful evening, have a great night's rest, and may God bless you.